Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Sameena Jaspal. I'm a licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand and a MARA advisor for Australia. Today, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Sameena Jaspal, who's also a senior licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand. Welcome, Sameena.
Thanks, Aman. It's really a privilege to co-host this session today with Aman because I'm really excited to introduce our guest, Krishna Botica. Krishna is a powerhouse in New Zealand's hospitality industry, and she successfully managed and co-owned some of Auckland's most beloved restaurants, restaurants that I love, and I'm sure a lot of you will know them, especially if you are in New Zealand, Cafe Hanoi, Ghost Street, and Prego from earlier.
Amazing. Krishna is also the National Vice President of Restaurant Association of New Zealand, and she has worked tirelessly to support and advocate for the rights of the hospitality industry. She's a leader, she's a restaurateur, and she's a very strong advocate for customer service excellence. So today, without further ado, we really welcome Krishna Botica. Welcome to the podcast, Krishna.
Hi, Aman and Sameena. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited about what we're going to discuss today.
Krishna, do you mind if we start right at the beginning? Could you share a little bit about your childhood, how it sort of influenced your journey to where you are today, and also influenced the values that you live by today?
All right. Well, we're going back a little ways, and there's lots of stories. I could keep you enthralled for a number of hours, but I'll try to keep it simple. I came from a very mixed family environment, including multiple stepmothers. I was raised by my solo mother, but also by another solo mother that we lived with for a period of time, especially in my formative years. And we had a cluster of children, which there were about 12 of us from 5 different families. And we moved as a pack around the neighbourhood. It was the late 70s and early 80s. And we ended up being nurtured by the village, which was back in those days in New Zealand, it was, a wonderful way to grow up. It was warm. It was welcoming. It was full of food. Everybody was ready to provide us food whenever the kids showed up. And it was also very diverse because we had families from Indonesia, we had families from Austria, from Germany, and we're a little old town in New Zealand, which is a town. It's now called a city, but it was Auckland. And we had this understanding that no matter what religion, because there was Jewish, we had Catholic, there was Mormon. My best friend was from a Mormon family, and of course we had atheism in my particular family. And so we learned from a very young age that love and warmth and a welcoming environment was a wonderful place to be. So I think that's informed my narrative my whole life. It's the way it started, and it's the way I want it to be for my own child, and it's the way that our family still exists.
Wonderful. So, Krishna, you mentioned you've got such a dynamic upbringing. Could you tell me any lessons that you learned from your early life that sort of geared you up for the challenges for the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I guess one of the most important things that I lived through was that, and back in the early days, being from a solo mother family environment and the different environment that I came from, I was quite different. I've always been a little bit different. And just the fact that I was surrounded by love and a community and an environment where I truly belonged, I sort of felt that has prepared me for the challenges that I see other people in my team face, the challenges that I have faced. It's because we're all looking for a bridge to belong somewhere. And whether that's for you personally in an environment you find yourself in, or it's for somebody that you are leading, or it's for somebody that you are serving, if you can provide a bridge either for them or for yourself, you have something to work with that's actually a true connection. And that is, I think, probably the one thing that I feel still drives me through some of the more difficult challenges that I face.
I really love that, and that bridge, and I think it's a little bit how we've ended up connecting as well. We've been able to sort of make a bridge between us, and it's been interesting on the meets and our beautiful lunch that we had as well at Cafe Hanoi. Spirituality has come up, and every time we've sort of had a conversation, and I wanted to touch on that, especially the practice and your practice of Vipassana meditation, something you and Aman have in common. How did you discover it, and how has it helped you maintain balance in your, personal and also professional life?
Well, look, spirituality, whether you want to call it spirituality, mindfulness, faith, belief, whatever it is, I feel it's such a personal journey. And in actual fact, it was an artist friend of mine who, in my early 30s, said, look, I think you're going to get so much out of doing this Vipassana meditation. You have to do it. And he was such a passionate, enthusiastic individual, and had such a fascinating life that I was at that time in my life when I was like, no harm, no foul, let's give it a go. I mean, what's 11 days of silence? I can do that. Nobody thinks I can do that, but I can do that. And so, I also was really lucky. One of my stepmothers was a psychologist, and she had a very big influence in my life. And so I was really into the psyche at that point, and I was sort of fascinated about being a human and what that meant. And I had time. Like, I didn't have any dependents at that stage of my life. I was having a successful career, and I thought, right, let's give it a whirl, Shirl, as we say in New Zealand. But I think the one thing that has really brought Vipassana into my life on a more on a deeper level, basically, is that it has given me an opportunity to appreciate gratitude in a way that is not on just the external level. It's actually at a deeper level. And I believe with Vipassana that whether your journey is about finding calm, or your journey is about repairing trauma, or your journey is about just making the most of your life, having a tool or something that you can use in your life which gives you purpose and gives you a center is actually really important for us as human beings. And for me, it has been about finding that gratitude and actually finding a way to find joy in the small things in life, because life delivers these big things, and seeking happiness is all fine and well, but the expectation's too high. I think it's too high. I don't think that life is actually that simple, and I don't think it's that easy. So that is what Vipassana has brought to me. And in my professional life, it's been about giving me some pause, because I'm a relatively high energy individual. I don't know if you can tell. I get over exuberant about things. I have been called too enthusiastic in my lifetime. And I feel that having that pause means that I can put myself in somebody else's shoes and watch my own response in a more measured fashion. Otherwise, I'm just going to overwhelm everybody with enthusiasm. And that's not what people need all the time. They sometimes need just to be heard. So Vipassana has allowed me to listen better and feel better.
Amazing. So, Krishna, a lot of people here may not really know what Vipassana is. I think there's a lot of assumptions about Vipassana. Is it really hard? Is it 10 days of silence? Is it, how do we deal with it? In your experience, could you tell any practical mindset shifts or any gains that people can really start into that could benefit them? Anything that you would like to share?
It's a tough one, because as we've discussed, Aman, at different times that you do Vipassana, it can bring you different things. And each time has been so different for me. And I guess that's part of the journey, is you are on the journey alone. Regardless of who you love or who loves you, you are in this world alone. And so I believe that those 10 days of being alone with only your own thoughts and a little bit of guidance from somebody who's driving you crazy as much as your own thoughts are driving you crazy is a real eye-opener. Because when you pause to look at just one small thing, whether it's a point on your body that's sort of slightly itchy and you're not meant to move because you're meant to be staying still for an hour at a time, you start to realize that your brain is like a wild animal. And we're just always building, and we're always in response mode. And I'm in hospitality, so I am trained to be in response mode my entire working life. So that's more than 40 hours a week. So to actually appreciate that your brain is this miraculous thing is a gift. It's a gift because it means you start to have an understanding about its potential. You have an opportunity to have some faith in yourself and the way that you can manage your thoughts and manage your emotions better and find more empathy for others, or believe in something that other people might just, poo-poo. But if you believe in the power of your own mind, that is a gift. And that is what Vipassana has done for me in different ways, every different time I've done it.
That's really insightful, sort of diving into it. And like you said, everybody takes away different things and experience. It's still something that I'm yet to dive into. So it's always been nice to hear yours and Aman's discussions on this.
There's always time, Sameena. There's always time. Yeah. I think Aman would love to look after the kids for 10 days and just
I'm sure.
I'm volunteering.
What doing.
No, it's definitely something that I think is on my radar, and it's always interesting to hear more about it. I'm going to shift sort of slightly back into the professional sphere, especially for you. You've been instrumental in shaping some of Auckland's, best dining spots. They really are. What inspired you to create these unique restaurant experiences? Because they're also different. They're all very unique. Well, what was the inspiration behind them?
Oh my goodness, it's such a big question. And I think when you go into these things, sometimes you go in and the naivety is the wonderful aspect, and then you go and go, what was I doing? What was I thinking? But, having thought about this, I do, on a number of occasions, because we have done it on multiple occasions, I feel that I have this deep sort of quest in my life to get to the bottom, and a fascination for other cultures and other languages, and at my very core, I do believe that cuisine is the cornerstone of culture. So for us, the food is wonderful. We believe in making amazing food, but it's not always just about that. It's trying to grab the essence of that culture, which sort of is what we're trying to achieve. People have up to 1,000 meals a year. So, when they choose to come into your business and try that food, you have this amazing opportunity to build an experience for them that might touch them in ways that they can't necessarily define, but they will come away and it will have made them feel a certain way, or they would have understood something more, or they would have tasted something they hadn't tasted before. And seeing people responding to that is, that's what makes my life joyful. Always, every single time, and still does. So I think that's sort of that's what's inspired us to do that. It wasn't just about good food. And I can get good food at home. I can cook good food. Everybody who I know in hospitality can all cook good food. It's not just about good food. It's about all the things that come with it. And also watching people commune around that is, it's a little bit vicarious, to be fair. You know, you're looking at the way other people live their lives and sort of, learning how things can be for other people, which is rich. It's amazing.
I also want to follow up with Sameena's question, Krishna. You've been associated with some of New Zealand's iconic restaurants like Cafe Hanoi, Coast Street, Prego, and each of them have distinct personalities and culinary themes. How do you ensure each of these stand out in maintaining high standard of quality and service? Because I'm sure it must be really challenging, right? So how do you manage?
Yeah. I guess it's getting back to that essence of how do you teach people how to find those bridges of culture. And you have to get the basics right. If you're not going to get the order right and you can't fit in with their dietaries and you forget that they're vegan and you pour wine over their lap. I mean, there's some core aspects of hospitality that you have to get right. And it's so competitive in this industry. If we don't get the basics right, then, there's no game. I mean, we've got an average of 2.5 years of lifespan for the average hospitality restaurant in New Zealand. I don't know what it is around the world, but I mean, to my mind, that only just pays off the debt that it took to build it, and it's not enough. You can't go out of business every 2.5 years and be happy about it. You put too much into it. So it is about the training. I have to say, the training is always ongoing. But it's also about, for me, making sure that the individual team members that I have, sorry, I just lost my earpiece. The individual team members that I have can feel comfortable with finding that bridge and having some autonomy in those relationships with customers. And that takes confidence. It takes awareness, and it takes knowledge. And if we can provide a couple of those pillars, which is awareness, and because not everybody comes to the table, as a waiter or as a server with confidence. They come with some skills, and hopefully you can teach them the skills that they need. But there are interpersonal skills that take time to develop. So I've always believed that training from the ground up, when we've got the time to pour into those younger ones when they come through, whether they're 15, 16, 17, we want to build their confidence as much as we want to build their knowledge. So there's always some element when we're talking about our team members, what is it they need in order to get there? And what does it look like for them? Because for everybody, it can be something different. I've got some wonderful stories about, culturally, where some people are very subservient and that their culture is a very subservient culture. And, we are in a Western environment here. We have a lot of Kiwis who are, we're relatively bolshy and outspoken at times. We know what we like, and certainly our customers are all corporate during the day and different at night. So it's more about, well, what does this particular individual need? So I guess what I'm saying is the training isn't just about training and going onto Google Classroom and learning how to, know what somebody's allergies are. The training is about understanding who that server is and what they need to get across the line. Because sometimes all they need is, maybe a kickstart into how to make the customer pay attention to what they're saying, or how to, and for some of them, like certainly from some of the different cultures, when we first opened Cafe Hanoi, we had some amazing Vietnamese staff, but culturally they were very shy in coming forward. So I would talk to them about how much they knew about Vietnamese food and why that made them so special and so necessary to the customers, because they knew more than the customers. So if they know more than the customers, they are in a position to make those customers truly appreciate how wonderful Vietnamese cuisine is. So all they had to do was I love that choice, that we make it the way my grandma used to make it. And I just think this is, that's a really good choice. And so giving them a couple of little lines to say, just actually allowing those icebreakers, gave them the confidence that then they could then build on. So yeah, individual training, I think, is probably the best way I can describe it.
I think that's, having leaders like you that take that time and, like you said, individual training, and that time goes obviously a long way for the people working for you and with you, but also for the business, and it goes hand in hand. I think that's like really interesting to hear, and just, I guess, good advice for maybe other leaders in any industry. It's a great way of, working with your team and getting the best out of them, but that actually assists them and helps them for the future as well. Running these different restaurants. Yeah, no, please go.
Sorry, I interrupted. No, I was just going to say, we have a saying in our family, which is, you go to war with the army you've got, right? You live with the, you live with the idiosyncrasies that your and foibles that your family has, and what makes you think that you can go to work and get away from all of that? You can't. I mean, you are in the working environment you have. You are with the people you have. So that is what you work with. Anyway,
absolutely. And I'm sure along with all of that positivity and that individual training, obviously there are a lot of challenges that come up, especially when running multiple businesses. Could you sort of touch on, I'm sure there's been more than one, but one of maybe the biggest challenges that you've sort of seen and faced throughout the, your years in the hospitality industry, and how that can be overcome?
I think there's, there's me personally, and then there's, of course, the wider issues that come with, running multiple hospitality businesses in awful economic times or in pandemic times. I mean, and I think there are sort of two different answers to that, Sameena. For me personally, remembering not the names are easy, but actually remembering the cultures and those sort of slight nuances in each culture, the special days in each culture for all the staff. I mean, we always have in our team up to about 20 to 21 different nationalities. And I sort of have always prided myself on being in touch enough with the individuals across both the kitchen and the front of house in order to be able to acknowledge those special days for them, or how they celebrate those special days. So that, for me, it can sometimes be a challenge, because I have, on occasion I've got it wrong, and they've quietly taken me and say, no, actually, I'm Jewish. I don't, saying Merry Christmas. I'm like, yes, of course. So, but then on the other side of things, from a business point of view, managing people through, and especially very recently, managing people through those mental health issues that they are coming to the table with, it can be extremely painful as a mature woman with, who knows what it's like to be a parent, watching, young adults grappling with this from time to time. It has been, I have lost sleep over how to support and get them through it at times. And so being a bit of an over empathizer, which, I personally love that about myself, but it comes at a cost. I could do with more sleep at times, and it's an ongoing challenge. It is definitely something that I spend time thinking about how to manage, and maybe I have not found a silver bullet as yet. So if any one of your followers or friends has a silver bullet, please just message me. I would be very grateful.
Amazing. Okay, so I also want to dwell a little bit on the hospitality industry in general, Krishna. Hospitality industry is considered to be so crucial to the economy of New Zealand. And in your experience, how did how has the hospitality industry of New Zealand evolved during your time in this business?
Well, it's actually evolved in a way that I don't think many people saw coming, to be fair. And that is possibly one of the reasons why our business and our approach to our brands for Comensa have been so successful, is because when I first started in the industry, it was, French and Italian food. That's it, and everybody who was a Kiwi was brought up at home with a bit of, meat and 3 veg, Scottish, we didn't go as far as the haggis, but it was a very simple, very simple cuisine. New Zealand didn't even have a cuisine to speak of. I'm not going to try to describe what it is for us now either, but the Asian migration that we have experienced from, the subcontinent, as well as from, like China, Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, has meant that New Zealand has been in this wonderful position of being able to provide amazing food quality because we're surrounded by ocean and we're surrounded by, rich soil that can produce good quality vegetables. And we've been able to produce Asian cuisine in a way that we should all be proud of. But the restaurant industry has been too slow to really see that. I think we've been behind where our demographics have sat for about 2 decades. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's moving now. I do believe that, the migrants that have come through have done so in in the small owner-operator businesses, but there hasn't, the negative side of this is that I don't believe New Zealand provided them with a stable enough platform in order to really make their businesses thrive in a Western culture. And, that's part of the reason I got involved in the industry, is because I felt that our institutions, our political institutions, whether it be regional or central government, weren't giving people enough support to get these SMEs growing in a way that they deserved to grow. So, long story short, none of us saw it coming. We're in a wonderful space now, but we can still do better.
That's really great insight. Being
sense
from
to
that
the two of you?
migrant. Yeah, it does, and especially for me being from that migrant background and hospitality background, exactly what my family did. I came into New Zealand. My father was first an accountant, but that's what we did. We first, had a dairy. My dad invested in a dairy, and we had a fish and chip shop where our Indian food started, and then from that, he built up Indian restaurants in New Zealand. So it's really insightful for me to hear those insights and sort of see how things are now changing. And we look, we're talking back from the 80s and we're 2025. So it has been slow, but we can see it sort of, I guess, from the outside and in the changes. Another sort of place that we want to touch, which is another challenge, but I know that it was, this was something that you really assisted the hospitality industry with, was during COVID-19, a challenging time for the restaurant industry, a challenging time for everybody. But how did you navigate through those times, both sort of in the restaurants and your businesses, and as one of the leaders for the Restaurant Association of New Zealand?
Yeah. That's a difficult question to answer. A little bit of luck, I think. I have a father who has been in PR and has done media training with me over the years, but I ended up in a position of being a spokesperson for industry, my friends who were struggling financially, who were dealing with, depressed staff who weren't used to working from, they couldn't work from home, but weren't used to being isolated for a start. They were dealing with that. They were dealing with their own financial issues. And I'm the spokesperson for the Restaurant Association, but I'm the branch president speaking on behalf of the owner-operators to the Restaurant Association, telling them what, why we're struggling and where we're struggling the most. And the Restaurant Association, at my behest and the rest of the executive on the advisory board, trying to create a relationship with government so they could be at the table, it all converged at the same time. And so that tightrope for me was incredibly difficult to navigate. I found a pathway through because of Vipassana. In many ways, I could find ways to be grateful. I was grateful that my parents were still alive, with one of them having underlying conditions. And so I found I could focus on that and speak to that while at the same time moderating my response to the government, because we were speaking to the media who wanted clickbait, who wanted me to get angry, who wanted me to say, this isn't good enough. This is not, why are you shutting us down? So we still wanted to be at the table at the Restaurant Association at the end of all this. So I had to have that in my sights while at the same time feeling like I was still representing my friends. And so, yeah, that was super, super tricky. As I say, little bit of luck, little bit of pause after people had asked me a question. I have apparently quite expressive eyes, so I could say something with my eyes, but something different with my mouth. And I believe that came in handy at that time.
Wonderful. So I want to also ask you, Krishna, you have been, like you said, these were the COVID times have been pretty tough, and I'm glad someone like you took up the mantle to represent the industry in those tough times. As the National Vice President of Restaurant Association, you've always been a very vocal advocate for the industry. So what really motivated you to take up this leadership role?
So look, I was fortunate enough to be in very stable businesses. A business, Prego was an incredibly stable business, and be offered ownership in that business at quite a young age. And so without the responsibilities of family, but the responsibilities of business, I got to understand, the nature of compliance and business compliance within our industry. And I also had the advantage, because our business was, so successful and quite large, I had the luxury of some time to do some deeper dives. And so I guess what I came out, and I also happen to be naturally quite an opinionated person and have a decent chunk of self-belief. So I guess it was a natural progression to find my voice and put it out there into the ether. And somebody at the association picked up that vibe and said, we can do something with that opinion. We can do something with that voice. Come and work with us. And so that's ended up being, I think now 18 years of incredibly rewarding work, because, it's not just about my business or my team. I feel like I can have an impact, and I can look at these things more broadly and say, why is that? Why is the policy that way? And why does that policy not suit hospitality when we employ so many people in this country and we have such an amazing reputation worldwide, and yet we're all SMEs, and we need to move. We need somebody up there and the powers that be to understand that these compliance issues need to come with some understanding of how that affects owner-operators who are desperately trying to do an amazing job and represent this country to our tourist industry.
Absolutely. Fast forwarding from COVID to today, what are some of the key issues that you're currently addressing through the association, and sort of, how are you tackling those, and again assisting with the Restaurant Association, this SMEs business, advocating for them sort of in the current times?
Well, yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it's been COVID followed by a recession, and so our industry is plagued still. There has been massive wins in the last 12 months. We've actually been given our own portfolio and our own minister. So we have one person that we can go to with all things hospitality, whether that be, hey, what are we doing with the immigration policy? How about this as an option? How about we accredit ourselves as a viable business through our industry and through our association to prove to you that we are good employers, rather than somebody just in the immigration ministry saying, what are you going to do about the reputation that your industry has, as for whether it's some of the bad players, which every industry has bad players, but quite often, because media can tend to focus, restaurants are easy pickings in that regard, because there's so much social media and there's so much comment about them already out there in the ether. So immigration and compliance issues is something that we are still looking at and focusing on. I find it really interesting, right? Because, in New Zealand, we sort of suffer a little bit from tall poppy syndrome and we have a really vulnerable economy. And we're made up of SMEs everywhere, even the farmers, they might belong to Federated Farmers, but so we have all of these SME people, and we've got things that we could do better in terms of how we support them, either through regional or through central government. But they need to know how to do that. And so for us, it's about educating those powers that, we can do this. We're very, very capable people in hospitality. We're skilled in so many ways. We're so good at pivoting. Yes, we can be compliant, but hey, let's have a conversation about what that looks like for us when we're running businesses that are operating sometimes, 12 hours a day. So yeah, we need to take down the stress for people who are taking the plunge and providing amazing food for locals and for tourists. I do believe that is the Restaurant Association's raison d'etre. We've got to take some of that stress away for these owner-operators.
Wonderful. Krishna, I also want to ask you a little bit more about your personal leadership. You have been a champion of customer service excellence over the years. How do you really inspire other members in this industry to prioritize this, especially, during challenging times when these may be affected?
Yeah, I like it. It's about connection, right? So if I go and take a leadership course and I'm trying to connect with people who are, a couple of decades younger than me, I have to show them what connection looks like, which means I need to be very upfront about my own battles and my own struggles, and how they have to basically put the mirror up in order to lead. They have to be able to put a mirror up and live with their own choices in life and their own paths that they choose. So I guess it's a bit of a legacy thing, if you want to call it that. But at the core of it, if you don't get joy out of being of service and putting somebody else's needs ahead of your own, then you shouldn't be in hospitality, right? And customer service, it's not rocket science. It's okay, I can see that there's something going on that table. How do I get in a connection there? What do they truly need from me right now at this moment in time? And that's where customer service is important, because we can all do the on brand, we can all do the right, let's teach people how to talk and say, please don't say guys, please say folks instead of guys. If you just we can all teach that. But leaders coming through who are teaching people front of house have to be able to connect with their staff as much as they do with the customers. Because what's the point? No one's going to do what you want them to do if they don't think that you care about them. So essentially, I do those leadership courses, encouraging people to invest in their leadership style, commit to their team, and then try and get up and try again if it doesn't work or if it doesn't go smoothly. Because they have so many opportunities every day, like you do in customer service, to actually fix a mistake, to pull it back, and to make people feel your warmth.
That's wonderful. I think that's such a good message, because it's not just is relevant to the hospitality industry, but every industry, in fact. We just did a podcast a couple of days ago with one of the leading personalities in investment migration. And from what you said, it reminded me from what Tatiana had mentioned, that, she quoted a line from Oprah Winfrey. She said, not everybody can become famous, but everybody can achieve greatness through service. So that's something very powerful.
Wow. Yeah. Yes, it is. I like that. Can I borrow it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Excellent. I like borrowing. It's very helpful.
Yeah. I think you've touched on some of the points of why, and I believe it is as well, hospitality is one of the toughest industries out there. And you've really thrived in it, for decades. You've thrived in it and been successful. What keeps you motivated and resilient, through the challenges, but to keep on thriving and keep on being so successful?
I haven't always been successful. There have been a decent chunk of failures along the way, just quietly. There's a saying in Māori, which is he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. And in New Zealand, for this small country, it's something that actually, I'm part Māori, which helps to understand that. My family practices it, which helps. And it means it's the people, it's the people, it's the people. And whenever I think of that, and whenever I find things tricky and hard to navigate, and I want to throw my hands in the air and say, oh, this is too much, I'm feeling, I don't know if I can make another hard decision today. That is what comes into my mind, because I know why I'm here. I know what makes me tick as a person. People. It's always been people. I've been so lucky that I knew that from the moment I can remember. I always wanted to be with people, and I always wanted to make people happy to be in my presence, which doesn't always mean that I'm always, kind, and it doesn't mean that I'm not forthright, because I can be intensely forthright. But it's just been super, super lucky to also be surrounded by people in this industry and in my family and in my friends who are passionate about what they do, and at the end of the day, when I get up and I come to work, I get to listen to cool music. The kitchen play the music while we set up. I get to listen to different languages being spoken. I get to watch people eat more messily than some. And I get to get up and do it all over again if it doesn't go so well. So you have multiple chances in this life I'm lucky to have multiple chances in this life to get it right, because I know I have made mistakes along the way, and I have had to learn to apologize in so many different ways for so many different things. But that is a gift, to be able to keep up getting up and being able to do that. So yeah, I just think I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet, basically.
Wonderful. So I want to just touch on what you just mentioned about making mistakes and getting up and moving on with life. I want you to possibly look back. You've got such an amazing career, and professionally, personally, Krishna. Just looking back at your life, has there been any time that you've been truly tested, and how did you overcome that? Could you recollect that for us?
I know where you're going with this, Armin, because we have discussed it. And I have thought long and hard about bringing this up because, there are some moments of truth that I have had. And one of them was when I thought that I was a bit of a, kick-ass, excuse my language, I'll say it another way so you can go over that. There have been moments when I have thought in my sort of early 30s when I thought, oh, I'm a very effective and amazing manager and I work in this amazing business and we're so successful, aren't we popular? And only to find out that in actual fact, I had inherited a whole lot of incredibly bad habits from my own boss, who was a bully and treated me inappropriately for many, many years. And I found this out one Christmas. It was Boxing Day. It would have probably been 2000, maybe 2002, maybe 2002, maybe 2003. Just before I did Vipassana for the first time. And we had this Christmas party at work. And all of my team were there. It was my favorite day of the year because I got to give out presents to all of my wonderful team members who I, still I'm in contact with and I absolutely adored back then and I still adore now. And I get to dress up as Santa or one of Santa's little helpers or an elf or whatever outfit I chose for the year and I give out these presents. Well, in this particular year, one of my most favorite waitresses came over and said, Krish, I know you got your outfit sorted, but we've got your outfit sorted. So we've chosen your outfit for the day. And they put me in a witch's costume, which I was crestfallen. I didn't cry, but I was incredibly upset by what that signified and symbolized to me as a leader and as a manager and as the GM of that business. Because what I realized it represented was that I had inherited somebody else's style that I didn't like to be on the receiving end of. And yes, I was effective. And yes, our business was successful. But for me personally, that wasn't the way I wanted my life to go. And that wasn't who I wanted to be. So I had to do a full reinvention of myself. Vipassana was part of it. It was part of that journey. It took a lot of hard work to reinvent myself. And, I probably still don't always get it right. But my intention was very clear. I must change. I will not live my life like this. And I will not subject people to a boss. I wanted to be a good leader. And so, I had to start right at the beginning again. So, yeah, that was one very pivotal moment. And it was just an outfit and it was one day, but it was pivotal. And I'm grateful to that staff member who had the gumption and the wherewithal and the courage to do that to me when she knew it was my favorite day of the year. So thank you, Jasmine. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for your honesty. I think that is something, people can probably all relate to, especially people in leadership positions who, sometimes that reflection of how you actually are received is not sometimes what you think. And then learning those lessons, makes those changes from within. So thank you so much for your honesty with that. What advice would you give, Krishna, to somebody starting out in the hospitality industry, looking to make their mark? What sort of advice would you give to that? Maybe it would have been, your younger self or somebody that's like really looking at starting out and this is the industry they know they want to be in and they want to leave their mark in it.
Enjoy the physicality of the job, because I believe a lot of us are in this industry because sitting behind a desk doesn't suit our needs. But it can be at times a challenge to keep up with the physicality of it. And you've got to deal with becoming exhausted at times, and how do you recharge your batteries? And sometimes you actually have to think quite deeply about how to recharge. And some people actually might not be fully extroverted. They might be slightly introverted. So they not only have to balance out the physicality of the job, but they have to balance out their introversion nature as well. We're all on a spectrum, right? We're not all like, I love being around people and that's the only thing, like, it gives us energy, a lot of us. Not so much in the kitchen always. We find more introverts on the kitchen side of things. But anyway, so enjoy the physicality of it. Own your mistakes. Try your hardest, but then learn to say you're sorry and learn to mean it. Because when you're in response mode and the stress levels are high and everything's moving at a very, very rapid pace, and you've said something that was the wrong choice of words or was quite simply the wrong tone, go back, revisit, rebuild, and then move on. Too many people don't go about their lives in a thoughtful manner. And if you're just putting energy out there and you're not regrouping and pulling it back in, you're missing a trick. Whether it's a customer or it's a staff member. So I think get up every day, do that all over again, and then be grateful that you've been given the opportunity to do it all over again. Because that's the nature of what we do.
Wonderful. Krishna, you've had such an amazing insight into your life, your personal and your professional journey. You are a true leader, and in fact, you're a role model to me, Sameena, and to thousands of people, not just in the hospitality industry, but if you had to sum up your journey in a word or a phrase, how would you like your journey to be summed up, and why?
Wow. You're very kind, woman. You're very kind as well, Sameena. I think I have learned over the years that laughing really matters in this life. And sometimes crying is also necessary. And that is because, I've lived a life that has been very rich in experience, in love, and very rich in suffering and grief. And it's so short that if you don't find a pathway through it all and you don't find a way or a reason to laugh, then you've wasted your life. And if you haven't cried, or you don't cry, or you're just always strong, then perhaps you haven't truly lived either. So that's my belief. And I think we all have to live by our beliefs one way or another. I think those are mine.
I really like that. It resonates with me, the laugh and cry, that balance is there, but also, appreciating both parts of that as well as your journey. I just want to thank you for sharing your journey. We've learned a lot, and I know that our viewers would too. I think we can, there'll be some questions, and I think, if there's some questions that have been popped in and we're open for questions, we've got a couple of minutes to do that. If you're happy to answer a couple of questions as well.
Sure, absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. So what was the biggest challenge that you felt during COVID? And what's your leadership style for managing young people entering the hospitality workforce?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to answer the first question first, because actually there was something that we hadn't discussed before, which I really struggled with it, because we were at a very pivotal time in our business when COVID first came on. We'd signed up leases. We were very financially committed to doing a couple of quite large developments. And then COVID happened we had to ask for help and live off charity for a while. And when you're in hospitality and you're used to providing and producing food and all of that, to actually ask for help and live off charity was very challenging mentally for us. But anyway, that's something that we actually haven't discussed in the past, but we had to rent out our property and live in friends' apartments. We did it twice for a period of 2 years. So it was really intense and very hard to accept that charity. Back to your second question. To be honest, I have been more effective with different generations than I have with others. I have seriously struggled with millennials. And I would say that I probably still do. And that is also, even though I have tried to dig deep and done some research on what makes them tick and what things are important to them. So I try to do my homework wherever I can, whether it's a cultural, if you're dealing with a lot of Thai staff, as we did with our Thai restaurant, I got to understand what the land of smiles actually truly meant because I had to research it. And then I went, now I know how to work better with people who are from Thai culture. So I do my homework, and I did that with the millennials, and 2 of which I have younger siblings who are both millennials, and that has it been challenging for me. I would say that the best advice I have as a leader when you're dealing with younger generation is don't poo-poo what they're into. Don't poo-poo what they care about. Don't say, been there, done that. If they're sharing an experience with you that they are struggling with, be there with them in it. Because we can all remember what it was like to have your first love, to have your heart broken, to be hurt by a friend or financially strapped because you made some bad choices with what you were spending your money on. We've all been there. People who can't be there with younger people are again missing an opportunity to connect. And that's what you have to try to do. You have to try to connect with your team more so. I mean, I believe your team are your customers. They're the ones that are assessing whether you are trustworthy, you're going to pay them fairly for the hours they work. Customers come in, they want to be charged correctly. Well, your staff want to trust that you're going to pay them fairly as well. So I believe every manager is actually just a reflection of their relationships with their team.
Amazing. So we'll just take one last question. This is from one of the clients. He says, I've been trying to get into the New Zealand restaurant and hotel industry. What are the skill sets or soft skills that restaurant owners are looking for if I'm making an offshore application?
Ooh, that is a really interesting question, actually. I believe that it depends whether you're going kitchen or front of house. So should we assume that it's front of house because it's easier to get into the kitchen? It's easier to get in with the kitchen, isn't it? With our immigration policies. So let's assume it's front of house. Approachability, super important. Understanding the New Zealand Western culture is about eye contact. It is about clear communication. It is about being trustworthy and honest. And everybody wants to put their best foot forward in an interview. But my feeling is if somebody asks you about what your strengths are, talk about that, fabulous, do your best, but bring up the fact that you are aware you have some weaknesses too. Because if you can do that with me, I can work with you. So self-awareness is so important with front of house.
Could we touch on anything on kitchen? Any advice for kitchen roles? Somebody's applying in the kitchen?
Yeah, I think if you're applying for kitchen roles, pick and choose what type of cuisine the business that you are applying for is actually providing, and show some depth of knowledge if you have it on that front. Because you need to be able to put your money where your mouth is very quickly in a trial. And if you have no understanding of Asian cuisine and what texture is, salt, balance on the palate and mouthfeel, then we're going to pick it up very quickly. So be really clear on where your knowledge base is, and be really clear on what you're passionate about. If somebody comes to me and says, as a chef, I've loved food since the moment, I can remember, all of my best memories are with my family and in the kitchen, I'm probably just going to go with your attitude, because we can teach skills. But people who actually really care and are passionate, a little bit harder to come by.
Wonderful. I think that's all the time we have. It was such a pleasure, Krishna, having you over. You talking about your profession, giving insights to young people. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, one that me and Sameena have been waiting for. And I really want to
Thanks so much, Armin and Sameena. So good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. It was lovely.
I hope to see you again very soon. We have to stay in
Absolutely.
contact.
Definitely.
We'll have
Yeah,
you
we
back.
absolutely will.